Hi everybody, Giselle Grenier here from artplace.ca. In today's lesson we're going to work on another book of backgrounds, and I'm going to be working on the back of this one. And this is a very heavy paper. It's about 140 pounds. Thinking back, this is I erased what it was. Oh, you can go to the blog and see the picture of which one this is for the technique. But this is more of a technique on the actual stenciled paper. This is using, let's see, I use cling stamps. I use a stencil. So, but this is just printed tissue collage onto the paper. And for the lesson, we're going to be working with scraps of paper, and we're going to create a very modeled background. This does take some drying time. So to get started, all we need is a palette knife and some gesso. We're going to be working with a lot of texture. And for the paper, if you're an avid book lover, you might want to turn the video off. So I went to Value Village and I got a dictionary, and the stuff from Value Village, whatever, I don't know what they do with it, but they have a massive bin outside, so I'm assuming whatever doesn't sell eventually goes in there, or I don't know. But I got this dictionary, and people use online dictionaries now, so I figured I'm going to upcycle this into something useful instead of, wherever it's going to end up. So I use this paper for the text. It cost me $4 for this massive dictionary. And I cut out the strips of paper like this. Oh, and once all that paper's gone, it's going to take a while. I'm going to use the cover to create a journal cover. And I apologize for sounding tired. I think it's 5 o'clock in the morning. But we're going to hit another heat wave today. It's going to be 42 Celsius, so I'm getting my video done really early, and I haven't had my tea yet. So I'm going to be using DecoArt Media Gesso, the white gesso, with a palette knife, and very thick gesso. And if you ever want the gesso to thin down, you can add a little bit of distilled water to it and it'll thin it down. And all I'm going to do is butter my paper. Now this will make a little bit of a mess, so if whatever's on the back side of your journal, if it's important, use masking tape to cover up the back. You can also do it this way, hold it up, and see all these nice lines? You want to keep that. That's going to add to the texture. And you don't necessarily want to cover everything, but primarily I want to cover the top left, the sides, and a bit of the bottom right. I'm going to leave a little bit exposed because the paint goes on differently. Nice and thick. And this is also going to act as the glue. Oh, I need still a little bit on the knife. And the strips of paper, you're just going to apply randomly. There is no real pattern to this. I'm going to put some of it off the paper so I can cut it. It'll be used in something else. A lot of this is going to be obscured in the background. Yes, I'm going horizontal because I usually do everything vertical. It's pretty good. I'm just going to do a little bit more. Let's do it right here. And we'll do one on the side. You can put the stuff upside down if you want. And go, and then just kind of push it down with your palette knife, and see the paper curling? That's the paper absorbing the moisture. To avoid that, what you can do, or to help reduce it, you can prime the paper first with thin gesso, let that dry, and then do this step. It flattens out at the end. And I'm just pushing the paper down. Not covering all the text, just making sure that there's contact. It is a bit messy, so just be aware. Making sure I have some nice lines there. You want to make sure you've got a good amount of gesso underneath the paper on the edges. Steal a little bit of that. All right, that's going to take probably about a half an hour to dry. So I'm going to clean up, and when we come back, we'll start doing some playing. Time to clean up. So while the piece is drying, I want to show you how I'm going to mix up some ink for this. Now I'm going to kind of put this aside, and I'm now using my unstick craft sheet. I got it and I thought, well, I'll do a demo video while the stuff is drying. So that's what's on my table now. Look how massive it is, it's huge. So to make up for the ink that I'm going to be using on the design, DecoArt doesn't have a color that I wanted to use. So I got out basically they have the primary colors of red, primary yellow, and primary cyan. I'm going to do some color mixing with that. And what to put it in? Well, I've got the little jar like this. And when you're going through your art supplies, as you empty stuff out, don't throw them away. Keep the empty bottles, because you can put custom colors in there. So you can see that these are the same, and then these are the same, and then you've got just a smaller version. So you can use the empty bottles for your mixes. Just make sure you wash it well, and wash it with, I use 1000+ stain remover to clean all my stuff. So it keeps, everything really, really clean. And you can put your mixes in there because you don't want to contaminate it. I've got a little eyedropper. So I've got my empty bottle, and I've got my water bottle, my other sprayer. And all I'm going to do is just fill the cap with water. That just makes it easier when I use the eyedropper. I also have a pack of steel balls, and these are for slingshots and that, which is, I don't know why they still do this stuff, but I got these at Princess Auto, and I put those inside the bottles. It helps with mixing. What happens is the pigment will settle to the bottom, so you can hear it. So that steel ball in there, as long as it's fully submerged, it won't rust, but it just helps with the mixing. All right, so let's put that aside. And I have 2 mixes already that I was playing with, and there really is no formula, because this type of color mixing can work with the DecoArt Media Misters. It can work with the Traditions paints. It can work with the fluid acrylics. You can use it with a chalky finish. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So, but you do need to know a little bit about color mixing. And ideally, if you have a red, a yellow, and a blue, you can get thousands of color mixes, okay? But the mixes, because there's different types of reds, there's different types of yellows, and there's different types of blue. You've got reds that are more violet, and you've got reds that are more orange. You've got yellows that are more orange, and yellows that are more on the green side, and you've got blues that are more violet and more green. So what do? You experiment. That's the only thing you can do. You experiment. So I have my little color journal here, and I already made my mix. And to start off, I want to make a much lighter version than this. Actually, that is pretty light. Well, let's make up a really, really light version. So we all know, well, yellow and blue make green. So I'm going to take my eyedropper, I'm going to squeeze it in, and I'm going to put it in here. And I'm looking at about 4 parts. You know what, I'm going to make 8 parts. Oh, how much was that? 3? 5, 6, 7, 8. It doesn't really matter about parts and stuff like that. I just had to count. And then now I'm going to clean this. I'm just going to wipe the excess off there, and I'm just going to squeeze the top, take in the water, and just add it into there. About a capful. Again, there's no steadfast formula for this. You just have to experiment. Okay. And the blue. The blue I won't need as much. I'll probably even just drip it from here, because I want to make this a very, 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 almost like a lemon yellow green. There we go. And they do have one. They do have one that's actually pretty good. I'm making a tiny bit more blue. So I think that was about 6 drops of the blue. So comparing that, yep, that's pretty good. Now I don't want it to be so intense with color, so I'm going to add 1 drop of red. Oh, Joe just came home. And adding that drop of red just tones it down a little bit. So let's put the cover on. And let's do some examples here. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? Let's put the BB in there. So there's a light one. And I added a lot of water to these ones here, so I wanted them to be really transparent. There's that one. And beautiful. This is on unprimed paper, so you can see that dot there. Perfect. There we go. So there are my inks for my project. That's for here. And I'm probably going to end up making more of this because I can already, I'm going to be using this color a lot. So when you're running out, so I have to make sure that that ball bearing is always submerged. I know I'm going to need a lot of this, so I can pour quite a bit in there. And I already know that once I have my yellow, just add enough of the blue till I get the color I want. And then add a drop or 2 of red, which will help neutralize the vibrancy. And the other thing is I need to add a bit more water to that. So this is distilled water in here, which is why I'm using this stuff. Let's add 2 capfuls. I want to make it very, 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 very transparent. There we go. So there's my 3 colors that I'm going to be using. So easy peasy, just some basic color theory. You just need the 3 colors, and then you can go on and make a whole bunch of stuff. But you can apply this to anything. So if you're looking at paint, a good color, you can use could be Pyrrole red, and let's say a primary yellow, even Hansa yellow light, Hansa yellow medium. And for the blue, you can experiment with an ultramarine blue, which is blue that's on the violet side, or phthalo blue, which is a blue that's on the green side. But those are the 2 colors, the 2 blues that I have in my core palette. Cadmium yellow light, cadmium yellow medium, or even cad red light and cad red medium. So you can experiment with all those and log everything into your color, into like a color chart journal, so you can, see. And if you've been following me for a while, you know that I have a massive book with all my mixes. So okay, so that's it. So those are done. I'm going to clean this up a bit, and then I'm going to bring out the Book of Backgrounds page and add some ink. That's beautifully textured now. I really wish we had touch of vision here, so you could just feel this. And then I created another swatch card. I did this one on Terra Skin, and just so you can really see the vibrant colors. So we've got our 3 custom Media Mister mixes, and I'm just going to trim this. I should have did this off camera, sorry. And just trimming the paper off. Nothing too critical, because it's a background, so I can always, if I always want to, do some further touch-ups, then I can. So I want some dripping to take place here, so I've got my kitchen cloths. These are the cloths that I use for when I cut up into small pieces for doing a lot of dry rubbing. They're massive. I got a close-up for this, but they're huge, so I just going to crumple them up. You can use an old towel as well. And I'm just going to lean that like this. Go. And put that aside. So I'm just going to take the colors, and I already shook them up. And I'm just going to do a little bit of dripping. And see how that takes first before adding water. When you add water to it, the paint, the ink, the meat, whatever it is you're spraying, will actually follow that path. I'm looking to see if I add water, it's going to become even more translucent, which will, so the pigment is going to be much lighter. And I love that vibrancy. Now the other thing I can do, if I want to have the water go a certain way, I can take my round brush. So let's say I want it to follow like that. And I'll take another light one. And it's going to follow the path where that I drew with the paintbrush. And it's stuck right here because of the big piece of print. There we go. And the gesso. Give it a little bit of help. I love doing these types of experiments. They're so random. And let me just hit this with a heat gun for a sec. Now I'm going to do this in real time. I'm not going to speed it up. When you hit it with the heat gun, depending if it's flat, you can actually change the direction that this takes. Now once the Media Misters are dry, they're permanent. They're not water soluble, which I really like. In saying that, I did create a spray, that's for another video, a spray using the DecoArt watercolor medium and the Traditions What is it? Permanent alizarin crimson. I couldn't see it. And to try to make a water soluble spray. And so that'll be enough for another experiment. So you saw what it was like with dry and then with using the brush. So now I'm going to spray with water. Only on the top. Let the the water drip. And then I'm going to take the medium color and just, not even squeezing the bottle. Let that happen all by itself. You can see where it's pooling up. This where there's a big clunk of gesso. If you have time, let this dry naturally, because now that's just me. Where the edges are, it'll be much darker. It'll create a beautiful hard line. And myself, I really think that's pretty. For you have much more time than I do, so I think I'm gonna speed this up a bit with the heat gun. Now watch what it looks like when it as it dries. Water evaporates, it gets a little bit darker, but as I'm doing this, I'm pushing the paint around. So it's becoming much more translucent here. And you can also tell this is much more intense than this, and that was because we didn't add as much red to this, and we didn't add as much water. So with the middle mixture, I added, I think, 2 capfuls of water to that one. And now for the dark, I'm only going to do a little bit of spraying over the whole thing. And I'm going to be very specific in particular where I put this one. And I'm thinking I want to put much more of the light green. Put that on there. And I may want to let this dry naturally. I want to have a little bit more pooling in the top here. Flip it the other way. Where's the spray? I don't want to spray my face. That is really pretty. Now I can also color mix this even further. I can take the light green, mix it right into the medium green, and just add a little bit of water. Whoops. And it makes the medium green a little bit brighter, but the light green isn't as intense. Oh God, it's gorgeous. You know what? I think I may actually let this dry naturally. I don't think I want to hit this with the heat gun. So you can see now the paper's curling this way, so all the pigment's going to the edges. You can fiddle with it to straighten it out. You'll get ink on your fingers. I want, whoops, wrong one. I want it a little bit darker here. I want the corner dark. You need contrast. the values, light, dark, so your paintings don't look flat. That is perfect. But I don't want it as dark as it would be if it was pure. This kind of frames everything. Actually, I love that. Okay, very carefully. And just move that down a bit. Oh, that is so pretty. And you can do this with any colors. Ideally, if you have the colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, you can never go wrong. Meaning, if, okay, let me just put this here. If you were to, yeah, I'll do it here. So if you think of the color wheel like this, and you've got red, you've got green, you've got yellow, you've got orange, you've got, let's see, you've got yellow, green, you've got blue. I should have made the thing smaller. You've got blue, green, and you've got red, violet. I forgot a color, orange. Yep. Okay, so when I was making up the color, so I took red and yellow, I took yellow and blue. So I used the primary cyan and the primary yellow. Okay, so I used these two colors, which made green. Okay, so blue and yellow made green. But when you add something opposite on the color wheel, it neutralizes this, which is why I added a little bit of red to tone down the intensity. So what I ended up getting was I've got my blue and yellow, which made my green, and then by adding a little bit of red, neutralizes it. Adding more yellow, my color mixes are along this side of the color wheel. So if you were to take, let's say, red and yellow to make orange, and to that mix, you can add a little bit more yellow to make it more yellow orange, or you can add a bit more red to make it more red orange. To neutralize it, you wouldn't add the green, you would go orange and go opposite on the color wheel, and you can add a little bit of blue or even a little bit of blue green. So for your colors, if you stick to the colors that are, within one or two spots on the color wheel, then you'll be all right with your mixtures. They won't turn into mud. Where you're going to run into trouble is if your colors, if I was doing this spraying with red, blue, and yellow, I would end up getting mud, because red, blue, and yellow, you get chromatic black, or a really, really, depending on the colors, you get brown. Okay, so if you stick to the colors next to each other, you'll be all right. Look at that, isn't that gorgeous? All right, so I'm going to let this dry. This won't take very, very long to dry. I want to speed that up a little bit. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab some modeling paste, and I'm going to be using some new stencils that I got to put on some random distressed numbers. I hope the numbers aren't too big for this. And then we'll do a little bit more drippage, and then this background is finished. So it's almost dry. I've got some little tiny little wet spots there. I'm going to continue on and change my mind. I was going to put some random letters on here, except I want to use this actually as a prompt. So I'm going to be using some DecoArt. They're called Personally Yours Urban Ink. And these particular ones they're 2-pack stencils. And they have, this one's called Beliefs. Yeah, really, really pretty. So I'm looking at using Learn from Yesterday, Live for Today, and then the feather. Because I'm thinking when it actually comes down to making this into an actual page, I mean, we're getting pretty close to this being a finished journal page, but it is just a background. So I'm thinking about putting some birds and basically just flying away, getting rid of your past and just kind of moving forward. Look at that. I already got... Oh my god. Yeah, I forgot to tighten the cap on one of the bottles. I'm going to be using some modeling paste. Now what I've been doing is, as the containers are emptying out, I've been grabbing them all and putting them all to one container, and they're drying out. And I really must find my plastic palette knife. So I'm going to be using the modeling paste because I want some dimension to this. And I'm thinking about putting the quote right here. I know why, because that's not dry. It's just silly me. Because the modeling paste is paintable. And I'm just gonna butter through the stencil, being very careful. The feather stencil has some really delicate little pieces. Oh, you can't see. And then there's the glare. I can't win. Sorry, you guys. Be very careful. This stuff is absolutely perfect. Oh, and, oh, I'm so excited. So I did a video. Oh, I should go get the piece. Hang on. I got to share this because I'm going to forget. I'm going to forget. So I did the video. So excited. Remember this one? Where I use the texture glass and then I use the leftovers here. And then when I did the video, I found out that DecoArt discontinued the texture glass. Guess what? No, they're not bringing it back. But they're coming out with 3 new products that I'm going to be getting as soon as they're ready for shipping to test, to try out. And one of them is heavy gloss gel, which is supposed to hold the peaks of a palette knife. So I'm so excited to be trying that. And I got some modeling paste there. Whoops, I went underneath. So the good thing about this stuff is that you can just scrape it off. And then this one as well. This I'm going to make very thin. You can use, now, thinking now, what I could have done with this one was use a crackle medium on the feather. That actually would have been really, you know what, I might do that. But then this is getting closer to an actual finished page and not a background. I just get so excited when something is just clicking. And you get that aha moment. Aha moments are very hard when doing it this way because I'm spending more time looking at the monitor to make sure you can see everything. Just grabbing the excess. Oh, perfect. Oh my God. Look how beautiful that is. Holy crap. That is gorgeous. Okay, so now let's clean this off. So when I clean these stencils with the modeling paint, you got to clean it right away. Paint, yeah, I'm kind of sloppy when it comes to paint. I hate cleaning stencils. I am not going to lie to you. But when you're using the modeling paste, you have got to get that stuff off of there. So what I could have done was if I had another background that I want to use the same quote, I would have just put the stencil back on top of that and would have just pushed the medium back in, because what's happening is that it just gets transferred. Oh, look at the random letters there. Okay, first instinct was just to get the palette knife and grab that. If you're going to do that, be very careful so you don't gouge the mat. And, oh, I'm full of tips today. As these empty out, when you start pulling the thing out and at the end, you have all that liquid put in, you know what I did? Shoved a whole bunch of paper towels in here. So I didn't have to throw that stuff. And I'm using the Viva paper towels, so you know that they're like super strong. And it extends it. So that's it for that. So that's going to take a little bit to dry. And when we come back, I'm going to add just a little bit more paint, a little bit more ink, a little bit more of the mister stuff, and then we'll be finished. Now it's time to add a bit more color. Now if you hear a bunch of noise in the background, Chaos is chasing a piece of crumpled up wax paper that I had crumpled up some wax paper and put some pieces on top of that because they were painted both sides, and she's chasing it on the floor. We're going to be using I'm going to be using the Media Misters again. I want to stain this paper, but I want to make sure it stays transparent. I was going to just use the primary cyan, but I'm thinking I'm liking the shimmer mister as well, which is a turquoise. I'm going to try both. And you could do this 10 times and it's going to come out different 10 times. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spray the paper first. And once the misters are dry, they're permanent. In any areas that are not sealed with gesso, it's going to be very strong. I've got a damp kitchen cloth here. I want to make sure that paper is nice and damp. And now the table's too wet. And I want to try this first. I'm not quite sure how this is going to look. Like I said, you can do this 10 times and it's going to come out different 10 times. I'm going to take that damp kitchen cloth and I'm just going to do this. And the reason why I'm using a kitchen cloth, because it's larger and I can reuse this. That's actually really pretty. So I think I'm just going to do that. And the water in my mister bottle is distilled water. You can use tap water if you want. That is really cool. That is super cool. Okay, this is good. I like this better. Just want to get someone on that paper. I'm liking this better. Ooh, look at that. Bring it down just a little bit more. Oh, beauty. I love the imperfections. And you can do this in multiple layers as well. So I can do this, let it dry, then apply a little bit more. I really like that. And having the cloth damp just means that if I were to put a dry cloth on this, it would just suck up all the paint. That is really neat. Okay, I'm going to put that one aside. I'm going to hit this with the heat gun for a sec. I want to make this permanent, and I'm going to do this in real time. I'm not going to speed up the filming. That's really pretty. Now, there's a little bit of a shimmer on that. That's really nice. So I think I'm going to do another layer. So I'm going to stick with the shimmer mister. Okay, so now it's going to go on dry. And I'm not using a lot. If I were just to use the damp cloth, see where it went on dry right there, see that bump? That's where the paper was unprimed. There's very little gesso there. That is so cool. You can also, you know what? You can also, if I take a tiny brush, so let's say number 0 round, somebody's been chewing on this brush. Miss Chaos. I can also enhance these. Okay, that's the same brush. And you can paint. You can paint them as well. Putting the shimmer mister all over this is fine, but I wanted to have a little bit of contrast. But I don't want it to be so dark. Like if I use the primary cyan, and I'm thinking, because I mean this is almost a finished journal page, but I'm thinking if I were to keep this as a background, this is going to be the prompt. So I don't want to make this too dark. And because the letters are damp, they're just absorbing the paint beautifully. The paint is actually going into the medium, which is what makes it flexible. And if I put a little bit too much on, just take a towel and just kind of dab it. You can use a contrasting color to do this. So for the green, you could use something orange or red. You can use paint, you can use metallic, whatever you want. I was hoping to use the wax metallics on this. It just, for what I wanted to do, it honestly was going to be a little too difficult and too long for the video. So what I may do is reserve that for phase 2 of the project. So as I'm doing this, I would love for you guys to contemplate a quote that you could use on your own page. I mean, you can use this one as well. It's no big deal. But if you had to think of a prompt, so if you were to create a prompt on the background to inspire you to create the formal artwork, what kind of prompt could you think of? Now as I'm painting this, see how dark this is? And it'll just fade out. I love this stuff. I love the fact that it's permanent. There we go. Oops, I got this. It is so blasted quiet in here. It's driving me crazy. I like noise. I want some noise this morning. It's about 5 a.m. We're, I think, on our last day of this major heat wave. It hit 43 yesterday, Celsius. So I do all my filming first thing in the morning before it gets really hot. Joe's out for his walk with Mia. I got my treadmill calling for me. There we go. So now, let's see what happens. And just dab. It just distresses it. I love this. As long as it's wet, you can play with it. Here we go. It's so pretty. And, you know what? I don't know how this is going to work. Well, this is all about experimenting. The white shimmer. The white. For the feather. I have no idea. Let's go with the number 5 round. Tiny bit of water. And yes, metallics I could have actually used metallics with this, but this is really translucent. And I really wanted to experiment with this. Using the shimmer misters is more of a, for me, is to push myself out of the box. Bit more water. I think I was out of camera view there, I'm sorry. I need to reposition that camera. And I'm just going to skim over the middle so it'll have some shading. There we go. Okay, this quiet is driving me crazy. I think I'm going to start putting music on in the background. There we go. See a little bit of that shine? Oh, lovely, lovely, lovely. If I highlight just the words, if I highlight just to make them pop, yeah, this is it. Again, just experiment. Just do a whole bunch of different things just to see. You can layer this stuff like crazy. The more layers you put on, the more opaque it becomes. If this was flat, stencil flat with paint, you can use, let's say, a gel pen, a white gel pen to outline the words. So learn today is what I'm going to highlight. Make the letters pop. There we go. Yeah, this is nice. Alrighty. So I think I will call this finished. And yeah, I would love to see if you do one like this. I would love to see your rendition of this, to see what you've come up with and some ideas, and you know, what did you use to add the color, and you know, did you what kind of texture did you use, what kind of paint did you use, just to give some different ideas and different ways of doing this, because there's tons of different things out there. So the wax metallics would have worked, but I would have had to have buffed it. Might be a little bit more too difficult on this, but you know what, gotta try. The liquid metallics would have been okay. Might have been too much contrast. It might have been a bit too modern for this real grungy piece. I don't know. But I'm going to save all that for phase 2. But this is beautiful. This actually could be just a page by itself. So just to protect this, because it's going to be going basically in the book of backgrounds, is I'm just applying a thin coat of matte medium, and that'll just make sure that all the little papers. If let's say a piece of gesso didn't get it, it'll hold it down. As I was doing some rubbing, I accidentally pulled off part of the feather. And I'm just going to make sure that I get it right on the edge, because on the other side is also another piece of collage. And this step is optional depending on what you did. So I would love to see your version of this project, your rendition. If you've taken any pictures, or if you've done it and you've taken some pictures, I would love it if you could share it with me. You can either email it to me or post it in our private Facebook group. The links to both are on my website at artplace.ca. I'd love to see, and comment below with some different ideas that you can come up with. What could you use for the book paper? What could you use for as a quote? The quote is the big thing. Is what quote would you use for this piece? And if you would like to see more of these types of experiments, give me a thumbs up on my channel. Subscribe to see more so you don't miss out on anything. But just let me know what you think. But some different ideas of what you can come up with for different products that you could use to create a prompt page. Love this. So I'm going to clean up now and get ready for my next project. And until I see you next time, stay inspired.